Approximately 25 square miles of land is considered vacant within the city of Detroit today. Of that land, 19 miles is vacant without any structures. Natural habitats and non-human occupants have overtaken the now blighted land. The city was once built for 2 million people, but now only houses 700,000 people or less. The city has lost 2/3 of its population since the 1950s, causing an astonishing level of blight. My research topic for this semester focuses on how the blight within Detroit could be revitalized using mixed-use programming and diverse built form to create the smallest footprint and less impact on the natural environment and the non-human and human occupants of the space. So I focused on District 4 in Detroit, which has roughly 20 to 60% of blighted land. That's one of the darker areas within Detroit. Looking at how the land is now covered in abandoned single-family housing units or completely vacant without any structure, and how mixed-use programs such as multiple different types of residential, from single-family, multifamily, high-rise, combining that with office, retail, and community resources can lessen the footprint of the built form and diversify the community, bringing multiple different occupants and demographics to the site and allowing the footprint to be smaller and lessen impact on the natural environment. I also wanted to focus on the physical site features and how that could be a design criteria or modify the design based on what is existing on the site currently and what was historically existing on the site. Looking at previous occupants of the space, the natural ecological networks that existed and currently do exist on the site, historically and present, and what occupants, non-human and human, once occupied or currently occupy the space, and how that could impact the design, the criteria, as well as what the built form needs to incorporate. And looking at the movement of these occupants and how the space would need to be organized to incorporate multiple levels of movement, looking at every scale from the animals that travel roughly a mile to 10 miles, such as deer or birds and squirrels, and then looking at like humans, how they travel bike, car, walking, different distances, and how that impacts the space or their context to the built form. My case study for this research project was Work AC, which they focused on a similar project called Nature City, where this land was vacant from the recession and how they wanted to create a link between nature and the built form adjacent to that. So this is Nature City, and they realized that people could not afford single-family housing units and that this land was vacant because of the recession, so they wanted to combine nature with the built form and bring in people from every level of affordability. So they brought in high-rise buildings, low-income housing, multifamily, single-family, and used the organization of that and mixed program in with retail and sustainable features into the built form, and kept in mind that the current inhabitants of the space were non-human and how the movement throughout the space could not be objecting or blocking the movement. So these lines, these dashed lines, represent the non-human movement through the space, that the built form is porous, that you can move between it, under it, around it. It is not a solid footprint. So they kept in mind that the natural ecological systems that existed or once existed, so they looked at historical as well as existing features on the site and how that could be incorporated within the built form. So the voids within this are the built footprints, and then this is the ecological system, the habitats of the animals around the built form, and how that intermixes with the habitats existing within the built form. And so you can see that it's pretty continuous, that you can see is just as much habitats exist within the built form as there is with it on the exterior of the built form. And then they also looked at movement of human and non-human, movement throughout the site, how humans would travel within the built form as well as without or on the exterior of the built form, and the context around the built form, how that influences the design. So I primarily would take the method of looking at the user groups, human and non-human, that would occupy this new proposed built form within the blighted land of Detroit, and how sustainability, keeping in mind that the existing landscape has overtaken the site and that the new built form should be the smallest footprint to have the less impact on the environment and the natural landscape. So I would look at the site, the users, and the historical context, what was existing and what was existing, what currently existing on the site. And by using data research historically, as well as weather and climate, and then site observation, what is currently there. Combining that with occupant user input, both from surveys, on the job or on the site interviews with people that lived there or currently live there, or visually witnessing what is occupying the site and how that could influence the design or the amenities that would need to be incorporated within the new built form. Looking at what Nature City did, I realized that the movement was a big factor that influenced the design of the built form. So I would need to focus on the existing road structure, just as they did. This is Nature City, and so they focused on this is the road structure that's existing. This is where Nature City existed or was built. So they needed a bridge between the density of the single-family housing units, and then over here is farm fields, so hardly any roads at all, and then the interstate that runs between. So they were bridging the gap between that, and so their movement was horizontal, matching up in between those two road structures, and in combination with the environmental landscape features. So this is the habitats, the green spaces, the green space surrounding Nature City, and how the movement throughout the space impacted the porosity and arrangement of the programmatic elements. So my project would focus on who would be using the space, how they would be using the space, how they would be moving through the space, and how this green space existing within the city of Detroit could be either connected or grouped to create new habitats or redevelop existing natural habitats of human and non-human, to create a new mixed program, diverse site with a small footprint that would lessen the impact on the environment.